Welcome to another episode of Black Scholars Speak as we laugh, inspire, uplift, and challenge the status quo. This is Black Scholars Speak. Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of Black Scholars Speak, where we are connecting culture, research, and community. I am your host, Janelle, and we are joined today by Dr. Amber Sophus, whose work sits in the... Let me restart. Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of Black Scholars Speak, where we are connecting research, culture, and community. I'm your host, Janelle, and we are joined today by Dr. Amber Sophus, whose work sits at the powerful intersection of purpose and advocacy and liberation. So welcome, Dr. Sophus, to Black Scholars Speak. I'm so excited to have you. This is awesome. Dr. Sophus is an assistant professor in the Department of Health, Behavior, and Society at the University of Texas at San Antonio School of Public Health and visiting research faculty in the Research Education Institute for Diverse Scholars at Yale University. Her research focuses on HIV, STI prevention, and women's sexual health with a particular focus on reducing HIV-related disparities and improving the uptake of biomedical strategies for HIV prevention among Black women in the U.S. South. Her journey truly reflects what is so many of us know so intimately, or at least hope to know, in terms of navigating predominantly white academic spaces, finding mentors who truly see you, and building a why, like what your why is and what keeps you anchored whenever things just get heavy. So in this episode, we are going to dive into the importance of mentorship, crafting your purpose early, and learning how to set sustainable, authentic goals. We're also going to explore her research on HIV prevention, community-centered pleasure and sexual community workshop that she's got happening January 28th. Yes. And her upcoming study that she has coming to you as well in March and early April about creating a culturally grounded framework for Black women's sexual communication. So that was a mouthful, but I say that all to say welcome again. And honestly, Dr. Sophus, if you could just start us off with your journey. I know you're first generation assistant professor. So kick us off there. How does mentorship and how you have been able to navigate your journey so far kind of shaped the way of where you are now? Give us a little tidbit.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question to start with. Let's see. Oh, so since I'm in San Antonio, shout out to St. Mary's University. That's where I went to undergrad. I didn't really have mentorship there, but I had a great community of people. My biology professor, Dr. Dobner, was amazing. And I guess she almost kind of was like a mentor, giving me guidance or like around what I wanted to do when I graduated. And so while I was there, when I graduated with my BS in biology, I was like, oh, what do I want to do? I think I want to go to med school. So I volunteered at hospitals and other places and took classes. And then I landed on public health. It was another professor at St. Mary's who also was like, well, maybe public health can be your route to get into med school. I was like, okay, let me try it. So I got interested and I got into the MPH program at University of Miami. And that's where I met my mentor, my mentor, Dr. Jason Mitchell. And I went to his office and just was kind of like, oh, like I'm interested in research and I've always been interested in HIV as a virus and like, can I volunteer? And he's like, yeah, I'll let you volunteer. He brought me in learning qualitative research, and that kind of like pushed me into like the research sphere. And I'm like, I love qualitative research. I can do all research. I do mixed method and I can do quantitative, but I just really love qualitative research. I love the richness of it. And so he was someone who was like, hey, like, what do you want to do after you graduate? And I was like, oh, what do I want to do after I graduate? How do I, what? And then I'm like, okay, I think I want to get a PhD. Like, I think I want to do my own research and I know I need a PhD to do that. He was like, okay, here are the things you need to do to get there. Let's start
Mm.
here. And I was like, oh, so he was kind of my first introduction into really kind of creating this. I've always been like a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 3-year plan person. And so it was like, okay, but how do we create attainable goals, short-term goals to reach the long-term goal? And how do we make that actually like actionable? So he is someone who's really good at like having these small deadlines and then teaching me time management at the same time. Like, okay, how long do you think it'll take you to do that? I'm like, oh, I don't know, 3 days. And he's like, no, a week. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, more realistic with the, your deadlines and the timelines you give yourself. And so building on that over time, he was my only mentor. I had like other faculty that I knew that I was cool with and things like that, but I didn't really understand the value of a mentor
Mm.
team until I got started my doctorate. And so there's the difference from having a mentor and a mentorship team. It's great to have a mentor. You want that guidance. It's someone that's kind of like, there's someone who is pouring into your career, right? There's someone who will have your name on the forefront of their mind when certain opportunities come up. They're sending you internships to apply for and fellowships to apply for. They're willing to write you a letter of support. They're willing to introduce you to other people to expand your professional network. But I didn't really understand the need to have
Mm.
5 or 6 mentors at the same time who I can reach out to for different things until I got my doctorate. So, I graduated with my master's. I'm trying to get into a PhD program. So I take a year off to just take classes and build back up my CV. I get into University of Hawaii. I get into their PhD program. I take a class called Cultural Competency that's taught from a cultural humility standpoint, which completely changed the way that I conduct my own research. And
Mm.
that kind of sparked me being like, okay, I know I want to be an independent researcher. I know I want to have my own research lab one day or maybe be over a center. How do I get there? And so at that time, I started kind of being like, oh, I also changed my population of focus to be Black women specifically in my doctorate. Before then, my population of focus for research was men who have sex with men and gay male couples because that's what my mentor did.
Mentor,
And
yeah.
like, if you're not interested in this population, it's okay. What population are you interested in? I'm like, I really wanted to do work with Black women. There's not a lot of programs and interventions available to or for Black women in comparison to other groups that are disproportionately affected by HIV. And I really wanted to do that. Now, during this process, though, I started realizing, like, oh, like, I don't have any Black women as mentors.
Mm.
Hawaii, like, there's not a lot of Black women that are outside of the military, that are in higher academia. Let me be more specific.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I had met a couple of people who were great, um, some other professors, that were, Black individuals, and but it's different when you want a Black woman's advice who's also doing similar research to kind of have that guidance regarding like what um what variables should I include in the survey and what kind of questions should I ask, and oh, I should test the survey questions first. Like, I did that, but it's like, with who? And so my mentor was like, no, you do it like this, you do that, and you go here, and was, very giving me technical advice and helping me to get there, which was great. But then I'm like, I think I need more mentors. I think I need other people.
Mm.
Started meeting, he helped me to build my dissertation committee. And so then I was introduced to Dr. Barroso, who at the time was at MUSC, who's down at Vanderbilt, who's a qualitative beast. Okay. Blacker her hand qualitative. Able to give me advice. And then Dr. Jessica Sells at Emory was able to give me advice. So I've been able to publish with them. And then even if I want to reach out now just to get advice on like surveys and things, they can give it to me. But these again are not Black women, right? And so it wasn't until I did my postdoc that I finally really had an opportunity to say, oh, I can reach out to these people, or I felt more confident to do so. I I could have during my doctorate reached out to people. I could have during my master reached out to people, but I didn't have the confidence. And I'm like, I don't know how to
Mm.
me. Like, what if they don't respond? What if they say no? And then like now I'm like, they don't respond, whatever. They say no, it doesn't matter. Like, that's the worst thing that they can do. Awesome. Like, that's so great. But you have to build that confidence even in your master's, even in undergrad, to be like, oh, I'm gonna reach out because I want to, I know, and build my research skills in scientific writing or build this. Like, you can't be afraid to like reach out. So I guess that's something that I also wish I had done in undergrad or during my master's and had more confidence to just reach out to people to ask, like,
Mm.
"Oh, you're doing this research. I'm very interested in doing research with Black women. Do you have any papers that I could like assist with to get co-authorship or whatever?" Like, and people actually want those kind of emails. They want
Yeah.
someone to give you free help, and you just
You're
don't
right.
like, oh, there's so many people doing research who would love for someone to be like, "Hey, here are some writing samples that I've done. I wrote the introduction on this paper. I wrote the methods on this paper. I wrote discussion on this paper. Just wanting more opportunities to build my scientific writing skills. Would love to volunteer for your lab or your research lab. Or would love to, I have 10 hours a week I can volunteer to like help with scientific writing if you have a manuscript that you're working on and you're about to submit or something." Love it. They'll be like, "Let's test it. Let's put you on. Let's see how you do." Like, they love that, but I just didn't know. So, sorry, I'm sidetracking.
No, that's
Um,
good.
uh, Back to postdoc life, I ended up getting amazing, amazing mentors, and my a friend of mine introduced me to, Dr. Mandy Hill, who's a mentor, and who is amazing. She's amazing. She's someone who's gonna tell you like it is, but also give you the opportunities that you're asking for and being like, "You asked for the opportunity. Here, let's see if you
Mm,
capitalize on the opportunity." And I did, yay. And so then, like, I've been able to publish with her and get her insight to be able to, like, if I need something, like, call and, like, "This is what happened. I really need advice." And she makes time. And I think that's something that your mentors do. They make time.
mm,
Like, you have their phone number. You can text them if you need something, and they're like, "Alright, cool." Everyone doesn't really get access to your mentor like you have access to your mentor, and that's just the truth. And so those are the kind of things you want in a mentorship team. You wanna be able to have confidence to be like, "Hey, I really want more Black women as mentors. How do I do that?" And you want them to be like, "Great, got you. Do. Here's some introductions. Hey, I met someone at a conference. Hey, I did this." And so over time, I've been able to do that. Like, even during my postdoc, I didn't even know about reads until Jason said, "Hey, here's the opportunity. You're applying for it." I was like, wait. What is this?" And in my mind, I'm like, Yale, like, they're not going to want me at Yale University. Like, no. And so to be honest, I didn't really try on the application. I'm like, well, I'm gonna just be honest. Like, I'm not even going to try to be super professional. I'm like, I'm gonna be honest. This is what I do. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to use this research for. This is why I see the program helping me. And then I got in and I was like,
mind blown.
yeah, this real life. And then I got access to a bunch of people who are mentors and colleagues, but also people who are willing and want
Mm,
to pour into you. Like, if I ask for, if I'm writing a K and I want to see people's examples of like of their like funded Ks that's like a template, they'd be like, "Great, here you go. Don't share it." And I'm like, "Thank you. I will not share it."
so, you've had a great experience, like
Yeah.
you said, with great mentors.
Yeah.
I am thinking about honestly myself. Sometimes like I always have like the best like they're not it's not bad, but it's not like the best, right? I know what a good mentor is. I also know the difference between a mentor and like a sponsor, someone
Yeah.
who's going to speak your name in a room that you're just not in. Um, what I guess as someone who is navigating this space and say they are willing to kind of reach out to people, but just like what you were saying, when you're looking for a mentor, what are those things that you should be like really meticulous about when you're
Mm,
looking for someone to be basically like in your inside circle?
yeah. Um, well, first, all mentors aren't good mentors.
Hmm.
All mentors have different capacities to provide certain things to you within certain time frames. Um, I've been blessed to have what I believe to be great mentors, but they're all great in different ways. All of them are don't have time to like for me to call and be jump on a quick. They don't have that time. All of them just they don't have the time capacity, and that's okay. But I know the ones that do. Does that make sense? I know the ones that have the time to write a letter of support. I know the ones who want me to go ahead and write it for them so they know what needs to go in it. I know the ones who are willing to put me as a co-I on a grant. Like, I know who those people are. But it's not really about them, it's about you. What kind of mentorship do you want? What are the relationships that you want? How do you like to be taught? How do you like to receive constructive feedback? How do you like to be talked to in an email? Like, you don't think about how important those things are. Like, I have a couple of mentors that are just very direct, and they told me from the day one, like, hey, I don't have time to read 3 paragraphs in an email. I don't have time to read multiple emails on different topics in a row. Send me everything in one email. We don't have the time for this back and forth all day long. And if you think it's gonna be that, let's have a meeting. And so you have to be
Mm,
very direct and very upfront with that from the beginning, but that doesn't mean that everyone's gonna do that. Like, I need someone who's very direct. I need someone who's not gonna fluff it up. I don't really respond to like, "Oh my, good job. You did such a." I'm like, great. I know I did a good job. What do I need to fix? What
right.
are productive things I need to do right now to be better at what I'm doing? How do I reach the goal? Like, what am I?" But that's just me. But that doesn't mean that everybody's okay with that. Like, I have a research lab I just started, and I'm asking every student, how do you like to get feedback? How do you like to be spoken to in an email? Because those things matter. And how do you build rapport if you don't know that? But I think you need to know those things for yourself first.
Yourself
Yeah.
first. And I think that's like the biggest thing. It's kind of like dating in a way, right? At least that's like how I'm kind of taking it from what you're saying. But
Yeah.
the difference within dating is that you kind of look for like that one person that's gonna be like, oh, they're gonna give me most of what I need. But
Yeah.
within mentorship, what I'm gathering is that that's not always going to be the way that it is. That it's kind of, for lack of better words, it's like a poly mentorship
Yeah.
relationship.
I mean,
Where
yeah.
yeah, like where you have where I can get good feedback from you on like documents. I know you're going to be detailed oriented versus for this other mentor, I know that they're going to be more like maybe entrepreneurial or business minded. So I'll kind of go to them for this, or someone else, hey, I just need to vent and like talk, and like I know that I can go to you for that. So I
Yeah.
do think that a lot of like what you're saying, whenever we're selecting mentors and create, I love what you said, mentorship team. It's about knowing who you are and what
Mhm.
your gaps are, which
Okay.
I think that also means there's a lot of what do you call it? Reflection
Mm.
and insight that you have to know about yourself. And
Yes.
I think in this space, especially like as Black women, we get here and there's like this imposter syndrome that gets kind of like taken up. Like there's like these things that are said and also unsaid that you shouldn't be here. You might not, shouldn't, people, all that stuff. And so
Yeah.
whenever you go out to look for those mentors, sometimes you're like, dang, if I don't come like P's and Q's correct and I don't like blow them off their socks, like they're going to know that like I'm not supposed to be here. How do you also kind of combat that aspect of things? 'Cause I know you said you had to gain the confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. If I'm honest, Jason made me gain it. Like, he's like, "No, you're gonna send this email." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Oh, all right then. You're cool. I'm gonna send the email." Like, it's just because he's like, "I gotta kick you out the nest. You need to stand on your own feet. Like, I need you to have these skills." But he wasn't the only one. Like, I had other mentors be like, "Okay, you gotta let this go. You gotta be like, I can't make you have the confidence. I can't make you have the courage even." But it takes time. I think we always have that imposter syndrome, and um, everybody's different. Like, I'm a big believer in therapy, and sometimes I just need to vent, and I wanna vent to someone who doesn't know me like that. I wanna vent to
Mm,
someone who's completely neutral, and I just need to get it out of my nervous system and out so I can now function, right? But then at the same time, it's some things that you I guess I should say this. For me, I had a lot of other people telling me their experiences, and
mm,
that affected my experience. Because I'm like, "Oh, these are things I should be looking out for," and then I'm, like, hyper focused on looking out for it, but then it's like nothing's happening. So what are you looking out for? Like, you're fine. Not to say that these things haven't happened. Not to say that instances haven't happened, they have, but it's like, "Okay, I need to make sure I'm centering myself and my lived
mhm,
and while I can appreciate other people's experiences as warnings and things to be observant of, not necessarily to be observant like, "Oh, this is what happened." It's like, maybe that didn't happen. Maybe maybe I'm just tripping." In
No,
which
you are literally hitting the nail on the head and something that it kind of like blew my mind too, because I used to really be that person that was like, okay, tell me your story, your journey, so I can write down notes and copy paste because I want to be where you're at. But I
Mm,
think that's the thing is that every journey, every story is going to be different. And it really is knowing like what I can cherry pick from
mhm,
you, from you, from you to create my own. Because
mhm,
that's the other thing is like as scholars, as researchers, professionals, whatever, we you don't want to follow someone's exact path.
no,
You do want to create your own. And also like even the way that you navigate and see the world is also just different. And that's
yeah,
valuable in like what you bring. And I think that's also really interesting within your work and like your research that you were also able to bring in your lived experience of being a Black woman and saying, hey, I'm really passionate about HIV, STI, prevention, research, and work and things like that. But I'm also a Black woman and I have Black, women friends and family. And what about us? And so, could you talk a little bit about how, like, you have even, as you're developing out your own program of research and community work, how you're centering your purpose, yourself within that?
yeah. I and it's something that's hard too, because a lot of times in research, especially when you're working with your own population, people are like, "Oh, like you got to step out of that. Like you can't bring your lived experience here because it's gonna bias the research. It's gonna do this." And I'm like, I don't I agree, but I don't agree. I agree if I'm putting my opinions in my work and saying like, "Oh, what they said is what I said, so it's fact." That's, I think, bias. But not that like, "Oh, no, I understand their experience when they talk about going to their provider and their provider never mentions anything around sexual health, but the first thing that they say is like, 'Oh, have you been tested for STIs?'" And you're like, I came in for a headache. You want to test me for STIs? Like, what are you talking like? So when we talk about experiences, like, oh, I've had
Yeah.
that happen too. Oh, okay, I get it. But it's almost like making sure that you one take a step back and say, I know my experience, but I really want to hear yours.
Mm.
Center your experience outside of mine. I come with the reference, right? Like I always tell people like black people everywhere have similar experiences culturally. Right, your grandma had the little strawberry candy in that one bowl, like, everyone has these similar, like, experiences of, like, what was in your grandma's house and how she talked and, like, what happened at Thanksgiving, and so and so messed up the mac and cheese, and so they can't make the mac and cheese no more, but that's more culture too, and not necessarily, like, my specific lived experience.
Right.
Kinda like as you get into, like, qualitative research, you kind of learn how to do that, but it's not something I think that can be taught, initially. It's something that you just learn over time. But I'm also a big proponent of not perpetuating stereotypes and, negative stereotypes and stigma in my research. Even in my writing, how I do my questions, how I'm thinking about the research, so I always reach out to my mentors who are way more established and have gone through it and like, "Oh, no, you need to think about it this way." Like, "Oh, wording
Mm.
it like that, like, you shouldn't word it this way." So even when I'm analyzing data, I'm like, "Okay, do I wanna say it like that? That sounds, like, so negative against Black women, and I don't really wanna be negative against Black women." So I always try to make sure my wording's correct and then have other people check it. So I guess I hope I answered your question. When we're talking about this, I'm centering my lived experience with how I approach the research, but not necessarily every time I'm analyzing the research, my data, if that makes sense. Because it's not about me, it's about the communities that I serve. I want to center their lived experience, their opinions, how they see this particular aspect or this thing that I'm researching. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does make sense. How did you even get into HIV and STI research? I know you said your
Um,
mentor was doing it before, but like
yeah.
what made you really kind of fall in love with like, oh yeah, this is it. This is like my thing.
Oh, it
Because
was
like
after I
to like
started.
well, I guess like to have like you're saying, making sure that like my lived experience isn't like wholly influencing like the work and their experiences that are very unique to them and happening. I always find it interesting how people gravitate to like their space.
Oh, it's probably it's probably the reason that I got introduced to qualitative research first, because I liked reading transcripts and seeing and reading people's responses, and you this is where you get the why. I love knowing people's why. I am I'm like a
Mm.
leading anthropologist who have no degree in anthropology, but I love anthropology because it's really understanding people. And because I'm a social and behavioral research scientist, I want to understand why people are engaging in certain behaviors. And not to say that there's a positive or negative or right or wrong. I just want to know why to give me more understanding. And so when it comes to the research, especially qualitative, and you read these transcripts and you see people's reasons why, you're like, "Oh, I never thought that would come up. I did not think that that reason would be the reason why you do or don't do something, or why you think about something, or why you conceptualize something this way."
Mhm.
So that's the thing that interests me. And then when I started reading papers around like what people were saying around Black women, and we're always compared to white women and
Yeah.
Hispanic women, and I'm like, "Oh, this is interesting." I started being like, I kind of don't want to do that in my research, but it's
Mm.
can't get away from when it comes to like, certain statistics, because that's how you build the like argument, I guess.
Mm.
But I'm like, okay, that's fine. But when I do my work, I really want to make sure that I'm not making these comparisons in that way. Um,
I'm
which
like
is
a
hard to
huge
do.
proponent of in racial group like analysis. Like look like comparing black people to black people or
Yeah.
African Americans to African Americans because I do think that there's our experience is unique within our racial group and we're not a monolith. So there's a lot we can learn comparing to just each other.
Yeah. I mean, it's both ways are fine. If somebody wants to do it the other way, great. But for me, I just don't want to do that with my research. Just because these two groups have two completely different backgrounds. And like, if you're not going to consider where they live, how much they make, policy, like, if we're not talking about all of that and then talking about the findings, which you can't do because research papers have like a page limit and a word limit. So it's like, oh, so what do I cut out? I have to cut out all this information that you really need to understand the background of these two groups for this comparison to even make sense to
Right.
me. So I'm like, oh, okay. Like even when we talk about condom use, and people are like, oh, I've heard someone say, oh, Black women are disproportionately affected by HIV because they don't use condoms. And I'm like, well, if we're talking about people in relationships, yeah. If I've been with this person 4 years, well, I'm using or the likelihood of me using condoms with this person are going to decrease as the years increase. And that's
Mhm.
but I'm like, but I've read papers, and even in my own in papers that I've read, that it's not true. And I'm like, Black women are using condoms the same amount, if not more, than their racial and ethnic counterparts. So I'm like, I don't like the narrative.
Right.
So you read these things, and I always think like, oh my God, a lot of people are reading this too, though. And so they're like, oh yeah, like Black women don't use condoms. And I'm like, but we do. We do. So, right, yeah.
Yes. Okay. And so kind of to what you're talking about, like how like these like narratives get put out there of like these like one-liner takeaways from papers and they get put on headlines and stuff like that. How do you work to educate the community within your work about like, no, this is the reality of the situation and those things aren't true. Those are myths and we can like still, protect ourselves and be healthy and like we don't have to abide by these statistics that are like not you're not really because they're like coming on headliners of like newspapers or like news stations.
Yeah. In my research studies, especially if it's a survey, I think of the survey as an intervention, an educational intervention. So I
Mm,
point to provide information as they're going through the survey. Like if you took a survey of mine, once you're done, you would know what PrEP is, its effectiveness, its efficacy, that Black women aren't using it, why they're not using it. And you'll be able to provide your opinion about like what would make you want to use it more. Like, oh, okay, let me provide this. And so I always find it interesting when I see other people's, like we're sharing information. I see their survey. I'm like, oh, you just asked a bunch of questions, or you said, oh, now I'm going to ask you about sexual health. And it's like, okay, but this is such a great opportunity to provide 2 or 3 more sentences around why sexual health is important, or, hey, here's a resource, here's this. But people don't do that because when you think of survey development, it's a way you do it, and you don't want to have too much text, and people are going to get lost and do this. And I'm like, well, let's take a chance anyway. Let's add in these 3 sentences throughout the survey, and let's see if people drop off. I haven't seen that in my own work yet. Even when, like, when I do focus groups or interviews, I have a part at the beginning where I'm like, okay, well, let me talk to you about this. Let me tell you this. Or I'll make a PowerPoint and I'm like, here's the information. Okay, now let me ask you these questions because I want you to leave more educated about whatever when you come in. And in my interviews and focus groups, whenever we talk about HIV and STIs, they're always like, oh, well, like, why are we talking about that? I'm like, oh, great. Let me tell you. That's a great question. And then they're like, oh, I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't know that we were so impacted. And whenever you see the news, it's all everything is catered to gay men, and I don't know why that is. So I just never thought that I needed to care about this. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. So
Yes, because I remember, undergrad, I went to Texas Southern for, I know you're from Houston. So I went to Texas Southern for undergrad, and I had a professor, her name was Dominique Gwynn, and she really introduced us to, like, no, Black women are actually at higher like, a really high rate of getting STDs and STIs too as well, and we went through all and, like, when I tell you I also had that same, like, mind-blown experience that most every of the other Black women who were also in the class also had. And so then I know for myself, I started thinking about, like, oh, well, like, my interactions with people, it needs to be, like, different, and I need to stop stigmatizing something that, like, is so stigmatized within certain communities because all that's doing is hurting me and myself. And so, like, within your work, I guess, what can we as Black women know and learn whenever it comes to protecting ourselves and, like,
yeah.
being, proactive, prevention first, whenever it comes to, like, HIV, STD, STI prevention and stuff like that?
That's a good question. I think well, one in the Black community, HIV is so highly stigmatized. Herpes is extremely stigmatized in general, no matter what community we're talking about. And I think just talking about it is always a good first step, but people don't want to talk about it. So you have
Mhm.
someone like me and my family that's always talking about it and bringing it up and being very comfortable. But let me say this though, in my family, talking about anything is comfortable. My mom told me and my brother where like how people have sex when we were like 5 or 6. She's like, "Oh, you wanna know? Okay,
Oh.
women have vaginas, boys have penises, and da 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 then they have sex and they enjoy." We were like, "Whoa!" And then we went to school being like, "That's not where babies come from, you know. Boys have penises and girls have vaginas, and boys stick it in the girl, you know." And it was a thing. But you need to. I already had that foundation of like we can discuss anything. If you have questions, I will. I'm telling you the science. I'm not gonna be like, oh, the stork brings you this. They're like, there's no
Right.
stork. No, that's not how people. That's not where babies come from. So you kind of need I guess it's different because 'cause I'm someone who had that foundation coming up, so to for me to be comfortable talking about sex and sexuality and all these things came easy, but that's not everybody's story, and so even with my friend I have some friends who are very just like, "Oh, we're gonna talk about sex." I'm like, "Yeah, like, you gotta get more comfortable talking about it. The more you hear about it and you get comfortable, then the to me, in my mind, the higher likelihood you are to, like, talk to a provider about what's really going on or talk to your OBGYN about, like, what's really going on with you
Right.
sexually with your sexual parts because who else you gonna talk to about it? So I'm like, if you're comfortable with me, you're probably gonna be okay and comfortable with your provider too. And so even in
Mm.
now I'm starting to get really more into sexual health communication because I realized that like there's all these interventions and programs, but you're asking us to talk to a provider. And it's like, if I'm not gonna talk to my friends and not even my sexual partner that much around sexual health, why do you think I'm gonna talk to a provider in an intervention or a program about it? That doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm like, how do we empower people to then talk about sexual health and sexual pleasure and all these things? And you do a study and you invite people.
And you ask them how. Because honestly though, like, that's like it's so tough and I know from my own experience, like, I know religion, I feel like for me has played a big piece in
Yeah.
like the way that I view sex and the way
Mhm,
that I talk about sex
mhm.
or not talk about sex.
Yeah,
And even like I would say like I would think that I'm pretty, womanist, woman empowerment, all of that stuff. But I'm like, y'all talk about it. Me, I don't know. It's hard for
yeah.
your own self. And then when you go into the doctor's office, I think there's this big judgment piece that's like,
Mhm.
at least that I feel,
Yeah,
whenever they ask that question, or if you have a concern and like, you want to be proactive and you want to get that like STD, STI test. And then it's kind of combated with like, oh, you're promiscuous. And I feel like that like sentiment is oftentimes put on Black women.
yeah,
And so then we just don't. And like we don't talk about it and we don't, and we just kind of like live in the dark with it. And it is what it is.
yeah. I agree. So I grew up in the church. I'm a Christian. My parents are pastors. They started pastoring when I got into undergrad. But my parents are still very like, yes, I would love for you to wait. I would love for you to be absent. I would love this, but also I'm realistic. And so I
Mm,
also need you to know how to protect yourself. I also need you to know the reality of what sex is and how you have sex and how you put a like they're very like it would be a disservice for me to not have real conversations with like the youth at our church around sex. It would be a disservice for me to think that you're gonna wait until you're married. I would, and they always say like I would love if you did, but I know that there's a big chance that you won't let me educate you. Because when you have a church that's not educating the people in the church and they're like, oh, abstinent, you gotta wait and do this, then you wonder why half the youth are pregnant. And you're like, oh, but we're preaching. It's like, okay, like, great, but you're not educating them at the same time as that. So I guess for me, I do and I did have a weird relationship with sex growing up too, because I've always been like having someone tell me like, "Oh, wait till marriage. You gotta wait, you gotta wait, you gotta wait, you shouldn't have sex and this and that." And I'm like, okay, like I guess I'm gonna wait. And
right. And then like if you even think about it, you're like, oh, I'm a bad person. I'm going to hell.
yeah, you but seriously, you do when you add that religious component into it. But I also clearly, I did not wait till I was married to have sex. I am single, I have sex, and I don't think I'm going to hell for it, sorry, I just don't. But I'm very for me, it's very different, though, because I'm someone who wants to talk about sexual health with my partner. I want us to get tested. I wanna see the results. I want to know about those type of things, and if I have someone who wants to have sex with me and they don't wanna do those things, I'm like, "Okay, well, then you can have sex with me because I need those things to feel safe and comfortable
Mm.
to have sex with you." And if you and then, some guy, "Oh, you don't think I'm this," and they're like,
Yeah.
"I'm clean," and I'm like, "That's now you're just immature in my eyes, and now I really can't have sex with
Now
you.
you're giving me the
You're
ick.
equating this to being clean, and I think that that's a weird term to use when it comes to sex, and so I'm like, we're not even emotionally connecting now
Yeah,
because it's like twisting my
exactly.
mind. I'm like, I can't do it. But I think when it comes to people just talking about sex again, like we talk about with our friends and we joke, but I have very serious conversations with my friends around sex and what it means have
Mm.
safer sex. And I'm like, every nothing's 100%. Condoms are not 100%. Like some birth controls are not 100%. So what do you want to do to get to 100%? Let's say everything's 99%, 99.9%, and you still are want the 100. What are you doing for the 100? What are you doing for the one? So you
Mm.
feel comfortable in whatever it is that you're doing. Because everyone have friends who are in the lifestyle, have friends who are not, have friends who are monogamous and poly and open and all these things. And I'm okay with that. Live your life. If
Yeah.
you're happy, I'm happy. But I want you to also be safe while you do all the things that you're doing. And I want you to be able to educate your partners or partner so they can then be safer with what they're doing with whoever they're doing it with. Because I
Do you
never make
know of any resources for folks on like,
yeah.
yeah, like how to have conversations or like all of that stuff, like with their partners, with their friends?
Yeah, so there's a woman, her name's, Evelyn Dacker, and she has this framework called the STARS framework. I love it. My friend a friend of mine introduced me to it because I was like, "Oh, like, how do you bring up conversations with your partner and, like, not ruin the mood? Or how can you do it in a sexy way?" And it's like, I don't want this to really lead to sex, but I wanna just have the talk about it. So that way when it happens, we've already had a conversation. Now I feel more comfortable leading into this moment, right? And so the framework's called the STARS framework, STARS framework. And it really takes you through like turn ons, avoids, relationship. It's like relationship and something. Sorry, I can't remember everything right now. The last one was sexual health. And you don't have to go in order of the
Mhm.
framework like stars. You can start with avoids if you want to. You can start with turn ons, you can start with relationship, you can start with sexual health, like whatever you want to do. But it kind of provides you with a good template of ways you can talk about these things, bring them up. And I found it to be very useful because I was like, I really want to talk about like getting tested
Mm.
things, but I don't want to ruin the mood. I don't want to come off like I'm judging you if you haven't gotten tested or judging you if you've had multiple sexual partners because I really don't care. And so I'm like, how do I do that? So using that framework really helped me to really build confidence around asking certain questions, even when it comes around like sexual desires and pleasure and like avoids, which was a big thing for me because it's like as
Yeah.
women afraid to be like, actually, I don't want to do that because you're afraid the other person's gonna be like, oh, well, then you don't wanna like why are you scared and do it all and like, it's a shame that's involved in it. If you want to do something that may be more taboo to them, and then you get nervous around it. And so I'm like, oh, I really wanted something that would help me to navigate that. But even just to give my friends a tool to be like, hey, here's something that I found that works for me and see if it works for you. And all of them have been like, yeah, this is great. Like, I'm glad I can like talk about these things. And it for some of them, it helped improve their sexual intimacy with their partners. It helped me build confidence and courage to ask someone like, do you feel safe with me? And he was
Mm.
like, and guys don't get asked that. Guys do not get asked if they feel safe. And so he's like, "Do you mean do I feel emotionally and mentally safe with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I do. I think." And I'm like, "Okay, great." And he's like, "Thanks for asking."
Wow.
Men those things. We don't ask men like, "Okay, what are your avoids?" Because they don't get asked. And I be feeling bad. I'm like, "Oh," and I asked another friend. I'm like, "Has a woman ever asked you if you feel safe for her?" And he was like, "No." He's like, "It's on the men a lot of times to curate the safety of the space, right? Make you to do the things." And he was like, "I don't think I've ever had a woman do anything to make me feel safe. It's just like, oh, I guess I'm safe." It's like, "Oh, okay.
I'm here.
Cool.
Wha
Okay."
So what about the pleasure, aspect? So I know, like, with your workshop coming up, it's gonna be kind of focusing a lot on that. So does it focus on, like, the self-pleasure aspect? I actually just got done having a conversation about this, with my best friend who's here,
Yeah.
and we were just talking about, like, different ways to, like, that she engages in self-pleasure, that I engage in self-pleasure, and, kind of some, like, our pitfalls, like, with it,
Yeah,
where I
we are
was
gonna talk about
where I
that.
was like, even if I'm trying not to, like, have sex, with, a man or something or just anybody in general,
Yeah.
and then after I'm done, then I'm like, "Wait, now I kinda want it."
I think that's normal. It's okay to want. I think that's a normal, but I think we also have to remember that not everything is a physical touch.
Mm.
With your partner, like, I learned from that talk, like, oh, I've never asked a sexual partner, like, oh, how do you like to be, like, how do you like non-physical touch? Like, how do you like intimacy when there's no physical touching? And it's like, oh, like, and a lot of guys do like a lot of different things, but even for like self pleasure, like, you can do self pleasure without there being physical touch. Because I know some women who don't like they won't masturbate. They don't like to touch themselves. I'm like, okay, that makes sense, but they'll read like a novel that has a lot of smut in it, and they're like, "Yeah, that does it for me." Or they'll like, you know,
Mm.
I think that we kinda gotta get out of this mindset of like everything has to be like a physical touch. Everything has to be like if you go to the like a toy or something like, but that's not everybody's comfort level. So how do we talk about self pleasure and desire and things like that, and also be inclusive of people who may not want it to do something that's insertive or do something that requires physical touch? Because I think that there's different levels to intimacy, especially sexual intimacy and self pleasure and like all of those things. There's different things that people like and are comfortable with as well.
Yeah,
I don't think there's one way to do anything. I think that it's that first and foremost, you need to decide what you want and what
wait,
you like. And
right.
then because I'm a big proponent, you can't tell someone what you like if you don't know what you like. You can't tell someone what
I
you
was just
need.
about to ask you that question.
Yeah, you really have to know yourself. And so I've taken like the last, I don't know, 10 years to really know myself, and not even just sexually, just every aspect of me, my personality, how I am when I'm hungry, how I am when I'm tired, how I am when I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm a overthinker, I'm sensitive, I'm emotional, but I'm also confident and and have like a lot of personality and I'm energetic and I'm friendly, but I also get burnt out and I know what to do when I get burnt out. I get overwhelmed and I know what to do about those things. I also know what I want from a partner and I know what I don't want from a partner. And a lot of women don't know what they want from a partner. They don't know what they want in a relationship. They don't know what they need. And these are two different things in a relationship.
Mhm.
They want sexually or need sexually. And so I think it really starts with us knowing these things about ourselves, because then you're going to be able to have a good conversation. If we're talking about sexual pleasure, like have those conversations with your partner now because you know what you want. And then
Mm.
about compromise, like maybe the things you want, this person's like, I don't really feel comfortable doing that. It's like, okay, well, then what else can you do that you feel comfortable with, but still lets me receive the type of pleasure that I want to receive, you know? So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
No, you did. And like I really like this conversation because I feel like it also goes what I was thinking is it kind of goes hand in hand with a STD, STI, HIV prevention because I see like self pleasure as also giving women, men, whoever like that confidence to know and to be able to say like I like this is what I want. I'm confident also within my body cuz like I know me and myself. And so whenever it comes to being in like different precarious situations, whether it's like, oh, I don't feel comfortable to have this like sex conversation with this person and like, have those kind of safety type talks. I feel like on maybe, and I don't know if this is true or not. I
Mhm.
feel like there could be a lot, like a big relationship with like engaging in self pleasure and like self sex practices or like HIV, STD, STI prevention.
Yeah. 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 I mean,
I
yes.
don't know. That's just me kind of like, oh, maybe because I could see the confidence piece like you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. But that goes back to saying that we have this assumption that everybody wants to have sexual intercourse to have like pleasure.
Intimacy, right.
Everyone
Right.
thinks that like, "Oh, you're gonna have sex, and that's how you get there." I'm like, "But that's not everybody.
Right. Right.
Everybody is
Right.
not out here having, um, um, uh, like, vaginal to vaginal or penis to vaginal or penis to an like, everyone's not having that type of sex." That is a
Right.
very big misconception, and I think people have, and I'm like, "Everyone's not doing that." And so once you understand what type of sex people are having, then you can better understand the type of conversations you need to have and where that comfort and that safety, I guess, for yourself will come in. But I think that we really need to get out of that mindset of like, this is the way people are having sex.
Having
It's like,
that.
they're not. Everyone's not having that type of sex. Like, and it's okay. But anything that everyone doesn't think everyone's doing is an issue. And you're just like,
Mhm.
no, no, we're all just a little ignorant when it comes to certain things. And once we realize that and we educate ourselves, I think
Mhm.
where that, like, the veil comes off and you're like, "Oh, okay." But again, like, you need to have that confidence to talk to your partner about the things that they not their partner, to have the confidence to talk about what you like, what you don't like, what your avoids are, and then really, once you figure that out for yourself, really stand firm on it. Because a lot of times we will be like, "Oh, okay, he doesn't wanna use condoms," or, "Okay, but I am on the pill, but also, and it's like, if this person doesn't care about your sexual health, your sexual pleasure, then maybe this person isn't the one that you should be engaging with any type of sex with, intimacy, anything with,
And
and that's
yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
All people out here in the world that you can date and get with, this one person, then to me, it's not worth it. It's just not. Like, I don't wanna console in my head and concerned about, like, "She's not using a condom, oh my gosh, okay, what I'm gonna do?" Like, da, 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 but I'm still doing the acts. And you have a lot of women, unfortunately, that do it because 'cause they're like, "I like this person, and they have all these other great things, but this one am I gonna not talk to them because it's one thing?" And for me, I'm like, "Yes. Yes. because that one thing is important to me, and I need to feel very safe when I'm engaging in any type of sexual act, and I can't have sex without a condom. So if you're not gonna use a condom,
Yes.
we're not having sex. And if
Right.
that's a hard thing for you and you're like, "I don't like condoms," that's fine. Then we
It's
won't
just
have all these other people out here that are more than happy to have sex with you without a condom. And I'm not saying that if you engage in sex and sexual activity without condoms, that something's wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm speaking for myself. For me,
right.
I
It's
do
what's
that.
important to you and you. Yeah. And so with your workshop coming up, what can people kind of like expect to gain from it?
Yeah, I have a lot of heavy hitters on within this workshop. They'll learn about a framework. They'll learn about different ways that they can talk and bring up certain kind of conversations without breaking the mood, and they'll get advice from everybody that all the speakers are going to be on the panel, and you can ask all of them who bring a wealth of knowledge in different areas of sexual health on anything you want to know. Like, is this particular framework useful? Is like, how do you bring up that I like to have sex this way without feeling nervous or feeling ashamed to bring
Mm,
it up? A lot of it comes with like shame, right? Or we other, and then I think it's the way that we bring up the conversation that brings comfort within it, so we can have a good dialogue, a good conversation with our partner. But some people just probably want to spice things up, and then you can definitely ask Kim Kennedy or Jasmine Abrams around those things. Like, how do I spice it up? What can I do? They can give great advice for that. Like everyone, all the speakers come with a wealth of knowledge. You even have Courtney Brain, who has a nonprofit, and he's also in the sex education and sexual health space. And just be able to ask him, you can even ask him if you want, like, okay, so let's say I have a conversation with you, and your response not this. What you gonna do? Like, who knows? You'll ask, but I think everyone just comes with a great background of knowledge to really just if you have any questions around anything, specifically around your sexual pleasure, feel free to ask those questions. But I think it's going to be great. It's 90 minutes of talking and seeing things acted out in real time. And yeah, I think it'll be fun. And you can ask any question you want to ask. There are no questions that's off limits. However, sorry, fellas, it is ladies only. So
okay. Good. Good.
it's
Yeah.
for
Good
the, it's
thing to
for the
say.
ladies. It's for the ladies. It's not for the fellas. So
I love that. And honestly, I am going to have my friends there. I'm going to be there. I already put it down on my calendar. So I'm excited because I think it's just time for us to like stop being so taboo about things and to find empowerment within our sexuality and who we are as women. So I think it's great. I think the workshop is going to be awesome. As we come to a close, I know, dang, I'm like looking at the time and I'm like, we didn't get to everything. But that's why we have the breakdown. Okay. So we can definitely dig into some more things around sexual health, around HIV, STI, STD prevention, talking about Dr. Sophus, kind of how she's navigated being in the PhD with an ADHD diagnosis too, as well, which I thought was honestly like whenever you told me that, that actually what sparked me to say I need to actually go get tested.
mm,
Um and that was really because a lot of what you were explaining to me on like how you navigate like your academic journey and things like that. I was like, wait, same, same, same.
yeah.
And these are things that I've been feeling heavy on me
Mm,
lately where I'm like looking back to whenever I was a kid and I'm like, holy crap, I was the kid that came to school without her backpack. Literally came to tutoring one time without her pants. Like I was just that kid. But now it gets to a point where you're in these academic spaces and you just it's hard. It gets the pressures increase and it gets harder. So in the breakdown, I'd love for you to talk about your journey with that too as
okay.
well. And so as we come to a close, you all, thank you again for coming and for just being so excited. I feel like your journey, honestly, it really does just remind us, listeners, everybody, that community is really the thing that is going to get us through whatever journey that we're in. So whether it be, we're talking about sexual health or we're talking about navigating academia and mentorship, we quite literally cannot do it alone.
Oh,
And then I also want to remind you all January 28th.
Yes.
Sign up. I put the stuff in the bio. So send me all that info. I'm going to put it in the bio so that we can all be able to support you whenever, yes, for that workshop. I think it's going to be really, really awesome. And if this episode resonated with you, share it. Share it with a friend. Share it with a mentor or a student who just needs to hear it. But until next time, keep growing, stay grounded, and walk boldly in your purpose. And this is Black Scholars Speak. And I will also put in Dr. Sophus' information in the bio too as well for you to reach out to her if you have any questions. All right, talk to y'all later.